Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a sci-fi action movie called Lucy. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in the bustling downtown of Taipei, where a beautiful young girl named Lucy is having a conversation with her boyfriend Richard. The duo is standing just outside the 5-star Regent Hotel, and they look extremely shabby. That is because they were partying hard until late in the morning. In fact, Lucy met Richard for the first time only a few weeks ago, and that was in a club too. Currently, this new couple seems to be having an argument about something. Richard is holding a gray suitcase, and rather suspiciously, handcuffs along with it. He wants Lucy to go into the Regent Hotel lobby and deliver the suitcase to someone named Mr. Jang. He says it contains simple documents, and the whole task will barely take 2 minutes. However, she has no interest in delivering anything for anyone. Lucy even asks why Richard won't do it himself if the work is so simple. The latter makes up an excuse, saying he has been in and out of the hotel several times in the past few weeks. Lucy immediately points out that it shouldn't matter how many times he is visited, as long as he has got a valid reason to go in. She takes his stupid hat off, and he looks like a greasy bastard under there. Upon hearing this, Richard finally accepts that he isn't on the best of terms with Mr. Jang, which is why he wants her to go in. Lucy once again declines, saying she is extremely hungover and has an exam to study for, but an increasingly desperate Richard reveals that he gets $1,000 to deliver the briefcase. If she goes in and hands over the briefcase for him, he will pay her $500. Upon hearing this, Lucy realizes that there must be something important in the briefcase. Nonetheless, she declines, but just as she's walking away, Richard does something unexpected. He grabs her hand and handcuffs her wrist to the briefcase. An enraged Lucy asks him to open the handcuffs, but he reveals that the key is with Mr. Jang. With no other option left, Lucy walks into the hotel and heads straight to the reception. She awkwardly asks to meet Mr. Jang, and the receptionist promptly relays the info to Mr. Jang through the phone. The receptionist then asks her name, and instead of giving a straight answer, she says Richard sent her with a briefcase. It is obvious that she doesn't want to give them any personal info, but the receptionist just won't let it go. She eventually gives in and says her name is Lucy. This is when several things go wrong at the same time. Richard, who is hanging by the hotel's main entrance, is shot dead on the spot. He hadn't been in Game of Thrones yet at this point, so he wasn't famous enough to make it through the first scene. A shocked Lucy looks around in disbelief, only to notice 4 huge and dangerous-looking men approaching her. They soon arrive at the front desk, bribe the receptionist to keep his mouth shut, and drag Lucy into the lift with them. Moments later, the men take her to the top floor, where Mr. Jang's office is located. Lucy immediately notices 2 bloodied corpses on the floor, and can't help but to throw up. Mr. Jang, whose hands are covered in blood, soon comes out and begins talking to his men in Korean. Lucy has no idea what he is saying and desperately tries to explain her side of the story. However, Mr. Jang calmly calls one of his men on the phone and asks him to act as a translator. He writes down a number on the piece of paper, which he explains is the code to open the briefcase. Mr. Jang then walks to the next room and asks his men to arm themselves with guns and shields. It is obvious that he doesn't trust Richard and thinks the briefcase might contain explosives. Through the translator, he offers Lucy 2 choices: open the briefcase or die. The poor woman cautiously opens it, only to find 4 plastic pouches filled with a strange blue powder. Mr. Jang then returns to the room alongside a drugged-up man. The junkie is made to sit in front of Lucy and forced to snort some of the blue powder. Barely a few seconds later, he briefly convulses and then starts laughing maniacally. Like that, Mr. Jang has seen enough, and he shoots the junkie in the head. He then turns his attention to Lucy and offers her a chance to work for him. Confused and scared, she refuses, but before she can say another word, one of Mr. Jang's men knocks her out with a swift punch. Elsewhere, in Paris, a neuroscience scientist, Professor Norman, is giving a lecture on his latest research. He claims that an average human only uses 10% of their brain capacity. The only living beings that have greater usage than humans are podcasters. At least that's what they think. It's actually dolphins. These shrewd creatures use 20% of their brain capacity, allowing them to map their surroundings and communicate with sonar waves. The scene shifts back to Lucy, who wakes up in a hotel room. She has been stripped down to her lingerie, and there is a blood-soaked bandage around her stomach. After a while, Lucy is taken to a huge room where Mr. Jang and a British doctor are waiting for her. They are soon joined by 3 other men who seem to have been abducted, just like Lucy. The British man explains that a bag of a drug called CPH4 has been forcibly sewn into each of their intestines. They will act as drug mules and transport these bags to Europe. He adds that if they refuse to do so, their families will suffer horrible fates. Furthermore, he also reveals that the CPH4 is a highly valuable synthetic drug. It is expected to become the next big thing in the underground market. Following this, all 4 drug mules are taken to separate locations. Lucy is held captive and chained in a room for the time being. She is guarded by 2 men, one of whom tries to put his hands under her shirt. When that extra came to work today, he did not know he'd be touching Scarlett Johansson's boobie. When Lucy smacks his hand away, the thug loses his calm. He starts kicking her in the abdomen, right around the region where the CPH4 bag is placed. This causes a large amount of the drug to be released into her blood flow. Suddenly, Lucy's body starts to be thrown all over the room on its own. She is lifted up to the ceiling, only to fall back to the floor within a few seconds. Back at the lecture, Professor Norman explains that if humans can access 20% of their brain capacity, they may be able to control every cell of their own body. If humans manage to access 40%, they may be able to control other people's thoughts and manipulate matter as they wish. Upon hearing this, a curious student asks what would happen if humans could access 100%, which is an obvious question, but Norman acts like it's the best damn question he's ever heard. He thinks about it for a while and replies that he has no idea. When the scene shifts back to Lucy, we see that she is well awake with her eyes glowing blue and sitting up straight as if nothing happened. A thug comes to check on her, but she suddenly traps his arm with her thighs. She knocks him out in the blink of an eye and steals the key as well as his gun. Lucy then heads outside and swiftly kills all the remaining thugs. Once everyone guarding her is dead, she sits down and devours whatever food she can find. She then notices she's been shot in the shoulder, but it doesn't affect her movement. Having access to your brain turns you into the Terminator. Next, she comes out of the building and sees 2 taxi drivers. She asks if one speaks English, and he says no, so she puts a cap in his ass. She then turns to the other and says, "What about you, you little bitch?" And he says, So he takes her to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, Lucy feels something strange in her body because she is able to hear people's conversations from a distance very clearly. They soon arrive at the hospital, where she can read the Taiwanese signs clearly, as if they were written in English. She then enters the operation theater room, where the doctors are conducting a brain surgery on a man. However, Lucy shoots the patient after looking at the x-ray scans, saying they wouldn't have been able to save him anyway, and then naming a bunch of scientific things that she's definitely never heard of before. Having access to your brain turns you into Bill Nye. Lucy then forces the doctor to get the bag of drugs removed from her stomach. While they are doing so, she calls her mother on the phone and says that she can feel everything: the space, the air, the rotation of the earth, and the deepest parts of her memories. Her mom says, "Oh boy, she's high again." Lucy says she remembers what her breast milk tasted like. Her mom says, "Time to go." She also tells her mother that she loves her very much before hanging up the call. Shortly afterwards, the doctors manage to pull the bag of drugs and are told by Lucy that it contains CPH4. The chief surgeon then reveals that natural CPH4 is produced in tiny quantities by pregnant women during their 6th week of pregnancy. It provides energy for the fetus to develop, so he is surprised that Lucy has survived this far with such a large amount of the drug in her system. Next, Lucy returns to Mr. Jang's hotel, where he is relaxing in his room getting tattooed and facialized. She immediately kills his bodyguards and assaults him by stabbing knives into both of his hands. She's really feeling the drugs now, so she's looking around like a newt. Using her newfound abilities, Lucy telepathically extracts the locations of the 3 remaining drug mules from his memory. She then leaves Mr. Jang alive, but he's mad that she used his brain like a drone camera, so he does an angry shriek. After a while, Lucy goes back to her apartment and meets her roommate, Caroline. She borrows her laptop and begins viciously researching everything about her current condition. She's opening tabs at light speed, like a 10-year-old discovering Fortnite Rule 34 for the first time. Having access to your brain makes your computer faster. This leads her to find Professor Norman, whose research on human neurons may be the key to saving her. Lucy immediately contacts him and reveals what she is experiencing right now. She says that she has reached up to 20% brain capacity, making her both ruthless as well as devoid of any emotion. To prove her point, she manipulates electronic waves and projects her live video on the TV in Norman's hotel room. Following this, the duo chats for a while and then comes to the conclusion that they should meet in exactly 12 hours. Right before leaving the apartment, Lucy tells Caroline that her kidney and liver will soon be damaged if she doesn't make major lifestyle changes. In the meantime, the news of Lucy's weird behavior at the hospital is spread all over the media, so she changes her hair color and style before boarding a flight to Paris. At the same time, she also contacts Interpol officer Pierre Del Rio to help her find the remaining 3 packets of drugs. She gives him all the information and precise details, which helps the Interpol to catch all of the drug mules in a matter of hours. During the flight to Paris, Lucy continues her research, furiously searching the internet for any information about her condition. She's using 2 computers at the same time now. Having access to your brain turns you into a 90s Hollywood computer hacker. The flight attendant soon asks her to turn off the laptops, but Lucy ignores her and asks for a glass of champagne instead. Unfortunately, her body starts to disintegrate as her cells destabilize from consuming the champagne. Lucy immediately runs to the bathroom where her body starts to turn into dust pretty quickly. To stave off her disintegration, she pulls out the remaining CPH4 and snorts it all at once. This restores her to normalcy, but she ends up passing out. A few moments later, Lucy wakes up in a hospital room in Paris. Pierre, several other police officers, and doctors are waiting for her to wake up right outside her room. Lucy immediately gets up, leaves the room, and makes everybody in the lobby, except Pierre, pass out like they're at a Diddy party. She then removes the bullets from Pierre's gun and asks him to take her to where the drug mules were previously secured. During the trip, Lucy uses her power to see the phone signals that are traveling in and out of the city. She sorts through individual signals and manages to overhear the conversation of a man named G, who is Mr. Jiang's top henchman. He is about to go to the hospital, where the 3 drug mules are currently being kept. With this information, Lucy takes over Pierre's car and drives him maniacally through the streets. Unfortunately, G, with his armed men, have already arrived at the hospital, and it doesn't take them long to find the other drug mules. The thugs take them to a room and cut out the bags of drugs from their intestines after brutally killing them. But just as G and his men are about to escape with the drugs, Lucy arrives at the hospital. She is now operating at a brain function at 60%, which allows her to move them around the hall without even touching them, turning them into little sea monkeys trying to hump the ceiling. Lucy even prevents G from escaping by creating some kind of invisible wall around him. Eventually, she freezes him and retrieves the drugs before leaving the hospital along with Pierre. He doesn't want to follow her, but she kisses him. Up top, he is freaking out, but in his pants, he is peeking out, so he decides to follow. Outside, Mr. Jiang notices Lucy in a police car and orders his men to follow the vehicle. The duo soon meets Norman and his colleagues at a laboratory. Lucy then starts to reveal everything she has learnt, thanks to her unusually high brain power. Meanwhile, Mr. Jiang and his men infiltrate the place and start shooting at the security guards. Back in the laboratory, Lucy discusses the nature of time and how people's humanity distorts their perceptions. She then urges them to intravenously inject her with the contents of all 3 remaining bags of CPH4. Lucy knows that her body cannot sustain this advanced level of brain activity. Thus, she wants to push her brain to 100% before she inevitably dies. Soon, her brain power goes to 70% and her body changes into a black fluid-like substance. It begins to spread over computers and other electronic objects in the lab. It is obvious that Lucy is downloading every bit of her knowledge into these computers. She soon begins to manipulate matter in such a way that it erases everything in the lab, leaving the scientists standing in a white space. "Oh no," says Morgan. "I've seen what that Willy Wonka fuck does in this place." Lucy then transforms all of the electronic objects into a single next-generation supercomputer. On the other side, Mr. Jiang and his men are overwhelmed by the police. He is so desperate to get to Lucy that he orders G to blow up the lab's door. He's using a rocket launcher. Luckily, Lucy manages to transfer her consciousness thousands of miles away to Times Square. She then mentally begins a space-time journey into the past, using a wave of her hand. This journey starts from early 20th century New York and eventually reaches right in front of the oldest discovered ancestor of mankind. The two touch tips, sending Lucy all the way to the beginning of time and witnessing the Big Bang. However, Mr. Jiang, who has now entered the lab, slowly points his gun at Lucy's head. He shoots, but by that point, Lucy has reached 100% of her brain capacity. Her physical body promptly disappears, integrating her consciousness into the space-time fabric. Either that, or she's naked somewhere. She only leaves her clothes and the black supercomputer behind. A frustrated Mr. Jiang is about to shoot the scientists when suddenly Pierre enters the lab and saves the day. The Interpol officer shoots Mr. Jiang, killing him on the spot. As the movie draws to an end, the supercomputer disintegrates and morphs into a black flash drive. Professor Norman grabs it and realizes that it contains all the secrets of our universe. A devastated Pierre asks the professor where Lucy is, and right on cue receives an SMS that reads, "I am everywhere." Stay tuned for the sequel, in which a Gen Alpha who calls himself the Rizzler does the drug and realizes how fucking stupid he is. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.